Good day, viewers, and welcome to another program of Political Scope. My name is Stacey Carmichael James, and I'm joined today by the Honorable Minister of Finance, Dr. Ashni Singh. Minister Singh, it's a pleasure having you on Political Scope today.
Thank you very much, Stacey. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Well, today we'll be examining elections 2015. Now, the President has announced the date, May 11. What are your expectations as the Minister of Finance as we head into elections?
Well, once again, thank you. I am delighted that you've chosen to focus on the topical issue of the day, that is to say, the imminent general and regional elections. You asked what my expectations are, and I would start perhaps with what my expectations are in relation to the outcome of the elections and work my way backwards. I would say in a very clear and unequivocal way that I expect a resounding victory for the PPP-C alliance come May 11th, and a victory that will see us regaining a parliamentary majority, and in this instance a comfortable parliamentary majority. Why do I say this? I say this because throughout the length and breadth of Guyana that I've had the privilege to travel and visit, I have heard almost a single clear message emerging from literally every community that I visit and every group with whom I speak. And that is a message of frustration in relation to the antics and tactics of the opposition, the combined APNU AFC opposition during the life of the 10th Parliament. I've heard the people of Guyana express their grave disappointment in the manner in which this one-seat majority held by the opposition was used for destructive, disruptive, and obstructive purposes rather than for constructive purposes. And even if those are not the words that are used, in every engagement that I've had, that has been the message. Sometimes the message is delivered through this specificity of comments offered, frustrations about the challenges faced in relation to electricity and why we have not yet harnessed hydropower electricity, although we've been talking about it for a country for generations. And then anger that the opposition has been obstructing the attainment of this long embraced objective. Frustration at cuts imposed on the national budget, and then the realization that they imposed those cuts not 1 year, not 2 years, but in fact 3 years in succession. And so I believe that there is a groundswell of displeasure at the manner in which this one-seat majority has been used by the opposition. I believe that the people of Guyana have recognized the suboptimal and dysfunctional situation that this one-seat majority held by the opposition has placed our country in. And I hear a strong message of enthusiasm that this will be corrected and reversed in an emphatic way come May 11th, 2015. I expect that in the coming days and weeks, we will hear, of course, as we always do in the electoral season, we will hear from all of the political parties about why they should be voted for. I think the current engagement between the two opposition parties is instructive, because what we have heard through, as your viewers know, there's been a protracted conversation about the possibility of a coalition between them. What is interesting is that throughout this conversation, the entirety of the conversation has been how the pie of leadership positions will be carved up amongst these two, between and amongst these two parties. And there's been absolutely no conversation about what their program is, what their agenda for development is. That apparently has been relegated to irrelevance, and their greater preoccupation is with who will be the number one man and who will be the number two man. That in itself is telling. I will say this, that the People's Progressive Party has demonstrated its commitment to development in Guyana. I believe that a very significant transformation has taken place in our country, and I believe that the people of Guyana recognize that the People's Progressive Party has the most viable, most credible, most genuine and sincere plan for taking our country forward along a positive development trajectory. And so I'm very optimistic that come May 11th, we will see this dysfunctional situation in the Parliament corrected with the return of the People's Progressive Party Civic Alliance to a majority in the Parliament.
Thank you very much, Minister. Now, we all know that elections were not constitutionally due this year. It was supposed to be in 2016. Now, how has the early elections, affected the work program of the government?
Well, let me say this, that you're absolutely correct that elections would have been due in 2016, or 5 years after the last Parliament would have been convened. Having said that, we as a party are, of course, ready and willing and very happy to return to the voters and to face the electorate, because unlike the others, we have no reason not to have every confidence as we go to the electorate. It is a fact that we would have outlined in our manifesto for the last election a 5-year program. And it is a fact that the abbreviation of this term of office would have somewhat constrained the full implementation of that program. But there has been sufficient demonstrated progress in implementing the program. And I hasten to add that this progress has been made notwithstanding the tactics of frustration and obstruction implemented by the opposition, notwithstanding their uncooperativeness in the Parliament. I am pleased to say that much progress has been made in implementing the program with which we went to the people, what we call our contract with the people of Guyana, in the form of our manifesto for the 2011 elections. And so if you look at every sector and every group and cluster of commitments that we gave to the people of Guyana in this contract, you will see that we have delivered. In some instances, clearly we would not have been able to deliver fully, but we have demonstrable efforts. In some instances, the delivery of those promises was not accidentally frustrated by the opposition's tactics. But like I said, we as a party have every confidence in the soundness of judgment of the people of Guyana, and we have no doubt. They recall that in 2011, having looked at 3 manifestos, the people of Guyana resoundingly said, or the largest group of the people of Guyana resoundingly said, we believe the People's Progressive Party has the best program and is the best alternative, the best option for the people of Guyana. We shouldn't lose sight of the fact that we have, in fact, 32 of 65 seats in the Parliament. We are the largest party in Parliament by a long distance. With our 32 seats, the second largest party, of course, being the PNC, the APNU, with their 26 seats. We have 49% of the popular vote, almost 50% of the popular vote. And so, notwithstanding the fact that the full 5-year program would not have been implemented, I believe significant demonstrable progress has been made in delivering on our commitments to the people of Guyana.
Thank you very much, Minister. Now, as we're on that point, I would ask the next question. In terms of the international community, the fact that we're having early elections, has that affected any agreements, or would that affect any?
Well, I would say this, that our Constitution clearly contemplated the holding of elections, as indeed the Constitution in any democratic environment would. The Constitution is written in a way that anticipates periodic dissolutions of parliament for the purposes of holding elections. Our constitution is very clear in ensuring continuity in the discharge of executive functions. It makes abundant provisions for the retention of executive authority by the government and for the discharge of those functions pending the holding of elections. I believe that the international community recognizes this. It's not the first time that we've held elections, whether early or otherwise. Indeed, it's not the first time that we didn't go to the fullness of our term of office. There have been times when Parliament has been dissolved in less than a full 5 years and an election held. And so I have no doubt that the international community, upon deliberate reflection, recognizes the adequacy of our constitutional provisions as it relates to continuity in the discharge of executive functions. We continue to be fully engaged with all of our international partners. We continue to be active members of all of the major international and hemispheric institutions. We continue to implement joint programs with those institutions, as indeed we have always done on every occasion that an election was imminent.
Thank you. And as we head into elections, what would be your message to Guyanese?
I really could spend a lot of time talking about this because there's so many dimensions of the contemporary situation that I believe merit reiteration. I would say, first of all, to the Guyanese people that the People's Progressive Party is confident, indeed has every confidence in the maturity and the soundness of judgment of the people of Guyana. We have reposed this trust in them, indeed since time immemorial. And notwithstanding that there is a sordid period in our history, a period of 28 years up to 1992, when the will of the people of Guyana was denied, since 1992, with the restoration of democracy, the will of the people of Guyana has been respected and regarded as paramount. We are confident that the people of Guyana, having examined the positive changes that have been achieved under the successive tenures of recent PPP civic governments, having perused, having, I suppose, deliberated on the history of our country, having most importantly looked at the plans and programs for the future, the plans and programs outlined by those competing for votes in May, I have no doubt, and we have no doubt as a party, that the people of Guyana will display a very sound and mature judgment. We've always had that confidence. I would say, too, that the people of Guyana, if I were to urge them to contemplate recent developments, I would say, too, that the dysfunctionality of the current parliamentary situation has taught us some very important lessons. And I would urge the people of Guyana to reflect on this dysfunctionality and the great harm that it has done to our country and the drag that it has imposed on our development prospects, and the steps that are needed to take to correct it. I think those steps are obvious. Like I said, we are a party that believes firmly in the democratic will. We fought very hard for the restoration of democracy, first of all for many years for the restoration of democracy, and subsequently for the preservation and strengthening of the democratic foundations of our country. That has been a central pillar of the work of the PPP over its history. And so we will remain firmly wedded to the exercise of this democratic will. I don't believe that some of our competitors can display similar credentials. And I think that itself will be influential in determining the outcome of the elections.
Thank you, Minister. Now, as we close off the program, I want us to, could we do a reflection on what led to us going to the polls this early? A reflection of what took place.
Well, I will say this, that at the start of the 10th Parliament, this novel situation where the opposition had a majority and did not control the executive government, and so you had a president and a party in Parliament with the largest number of seats but not in control of the legislature. This one-seat majority, to abbreviate it as such, was viewed from at least two different perspectives. There are some who said that it presented an opportunity for Guyana. And I understand the appeal of that view. It was a novelty in our parliamentary history and in our political history. There are others who were a little bit more cautious and said we should await how this configuration will unfold itself and how it will work. I will say that time has demonstrated that caution was perhaps the more appropriate response, because what we have seen is the opposition using their one-seat majority not in a positive pro-development manner, but in a manner that has in general been inimical to the interests of the people of Guyana. And I will say this, that our president, there's been much debate about the merit of prorogation and not prorogation and dissolution of parliament and when to dissolve and so on and so forth. I will say this, that President Ramotar will never be faulted and can never be faulted for lack of patience and for not giving adequacy of opportunity for dialogue, discussion, and compromise. He could have dissolved months into the 10th Parliament when the opposition imposed cuts to the budget. He could in fact have dissolved when they used their majority to deny the PPP, the largest party in Parliament, both the speakership and the deputy speakership. They did that, in fact, I think on the first sitting of the 10th Parliament. He could have said, this itself is not in keeping with the principles of fairness. And he could have dissolved at the second round of budget cuts. He could have dissolved at the time that they frustrated on every occasion that they took steps to frustrate the Amila Falls project. He could have dissolved at the time when they frustrated the passage of the money laundering legislation that is very simple, and legislation that is simply required to bring Guyana in conformity with international standards. Legislation whose non-passage placed the entirety of Guyana's financial system in jeopardy. On each of these occasions, and indeed on many others, President Ramotar could have called it a day, so to speak, and decided that this arrangement is not working and we should go back to the polls. I will say this, that I consider myself privileged to have had a ringside seat as I observed the president go to the greatest of lengths to give dialogue another chance. On every occasion, there were some, perhaps even some in the cabinet, frustrated at the first round of budget cuts who felt that this is not going to work. And the president, as the chairman of cabinet, and of course as the person to whom we turn for leadership and wise counsel, on every occasion displayed immeasurable patience and willingness to listen and to compromise. And I believe that has been the hallmark of the 10th Parliament. This abuse of the parliamentary majority and this sustained effort on the part of the executive to engage, to try to reach agreement, to consult, to share information. I can think of a plethora of examples, and I'd be happy to give you some of them, share some of them with your viewers. And I think we need to document them and speak about them a little bit so that the people of Guyana will understand better the efforts that were made. If I think, for example, with the Milo Falls project and the extent to which the president went, the extent to which every stakeholder involved in this project went to secure national consensus, national parliamentary consensus on the project, I don't believe that those efforts could be faulted in any way. And to, I suppose, return to the question that you've asked, that is to say, what really got us here, I would say that it is the abuse of the one-seat majority held by the opposition, the persistent, consistent abuse and misuse of their parliamentary majority. Some may say that is harsh language, but I give very simple examples. I'm not talking about year 2 or year 3. I will give the simple example of the first sitting of the Parliament when I say misuse and abuse. Throughout the history of PPPC majorities from 1992 to 2006, on no occasion did the People's Progressive Party use its majority to dominate the positions of Speaker and Deputy Speaker, not on one instance. We liberally used our majority to ensure that the other side always had one of those two positions, always. So in a time when the PPP had its most generous of majorities, that majority was used not to grab both positions, but in fact to secure one of those two positions for the opposition. So in no parliament and on no occasion from 1992 to the dissolution of the 9th Parliament just before the 2011 elections, on no occasion was the speakership and the deputy speakership held by the PPP. Not one occasion. Immediately, so they cannot say we didn't have a chance to talk, there were issues that they didn't agree with us on. Immediately, on the first occasion that the 10th Parliament met, this parliamentary opposition used their majority to ensure that the largest party in Parliament was denied both the speakership and deputy speakership. And so you have from day one a situation where the party with 49% of the votes, 32 out of 65 of the seats, has neither the speakership or the deputy speakership. The smallest party with 7 seats in Parliament has the speakership. The second smallest party in Parliament with 26 seats has the deputy speakership. If that is not misuse, abuse, a violation of the principles of fairness, they speak today about inclusivity, inclusion. They speak today about not believing in winner take all. But let us judge them on their actions. What better display of winner take all do we not have than the vulgarity of an opposition using its majority to seize control of both the speakership and deputy speakership and to deny both of those positions, deny the largest party in Parliament. If that does not constitute disrespect for the will of the people of Guyana, 49 point something % of the people of Guyana voted for the PPP. That's a fact. That is an indisputable fact. And so I offer this as an example to say that there has been misuse of the parliamentary majority by the opposition. I offer this, and from day one, And so we hear them using all sorts of glib language. Like I said, they speak of inclusive governance. They speak of willingness to include all sides. They had an opportunity there from day one, and they didn't seize it. And there have been many other examples. And so I don't believe that these things have gone unnoticed by the people of Guyana. In fact, I know that they have not gone unnoticed by the people of Guyana. And I believe that these developments, this conduct of the opposition, in the run-up to, well, in the time that has elapsed during the course of this 10th Parliament, these events that have led us to where we are today, I believe will be a significant factor in determining the ultimate decisions made by the people of Guyana.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Singh, and thank you also, viewers, for joining us on Political Scope. I do look forward for another interview with you where we can discuss more on the elections 2015. We still have some more time, and campaign season is fastly approaching. And thank you very much, viewers, for joining us on Political Scope. My name is Stacey Carmichael James, and today with me was the Honorable Minister of Finance, Dr. Ashni Singh.
Thank you very much, Stacey.
You're welcome.